Welcome to the Event Connection, where we explore the stories, trends, and unforgettable moments that are shaping our industry. We'll uncover the human side of events and celebrate the power of engagement and connection, all while having a little fun. This podcast is produced by PC Nametag.
Welcome to our very first episode of 2026, which is crazy because a year ago in January 2025, this podcast was kind of just coming together as just a twinkle in our eye. And here we are a year later interviewing the wonderful, the amazing Rylee Hubbard for our Event Design Trends episode, which I'm very excited about. Welcome, Rylee. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Megan. Yes, as you said, I am a part of the creative team here at PC Nametag, so I'm excited to dive in.
I am also very excited about this topic because a little bit of background of how this podcast episode became to be. Rylee gave this amazing design presentation late last year, and we were like, oh my gosh, like there's so many like juicy details in here. Like we've got to make this into a podcast. So here we are recording with Rylee. So we're so excited to have her, and we're actually going to give out a copy of that presentation. So stay to the end of the episode if you want to learn how you can get that for yourself. So before we dive in, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, Rylee. Let us know a little bit more about, what got you interested in graphic design.
Yeah, so I'd say it probably started a little bit first when I was in middle school and high school. I was always the student that chose art classes versus like taking extra credit of gym or Spanish class. Also, I loved my art teacher, so that played a huge role in it. And then moving down the line, my mom actually had a business. Shout out to my amazing mom. She had a screen printing and embroidery business growing up. So she did a lot with like t-shirt design and logo design. So growing up with that was like super cool. And I think that played a big role in where I am today.
So you were just surrounded with art your whole youth. That's so awesome. Yeah. So that kind of inspired you to get into graphic design. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And this is something I like to ask everybody since you just never know what people are going to say. Can you share a little fun fact about yourself with our readers and our listeners?
Yes. So fun fact about me, I do not like chocolate. So take that with a grain of salt. But I do like white chocolate, which some people think it's fake. But I like white chocolate. I like drinking hot chocolate sometimes. I feel like it has to be mixed with milk, not water.
Okay. I get it. Nice.
But yeah, like milk chocolate, dark chocolate, I'm not a huge fan of. Not my favorite. Don't like chocolate ice cream, but that's a
interesting.
Little bit.
I'm almost the opposite. I'm not, as much into white chocolate, but I am into, like dark and milk chocolate. So that's very interesting.
It is.
But a fun fact about Rylee that I can share is she is an amazing baker. She's always bringing in fun treats to the office. So that's a great perk for our team. And then lastly, I had a quick question for you. How do you feel about the Pantone of 2026? And if you're not familiar with what the Pantone color of the year is, it's just like a fun color that they pick, and it kind of represents like the vibe and the feel of the year. And it is called Cloud Dancer for 2026. It's kind of like this creamy, light white color. So from a graphic design perspective, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I think, it could go two ways. And in my brain, I'm like, no way. There's so many colors out there. I think there's approximately like 10 million colors in our world. So why would you pick a white color? I don't get it. But also I understand the perspective of a clean canvas, a fresh start. Our world is crazy right now. Everyone wants something fresh, something new. And I think a white is a good choice. But also there's thousands and millions of colors. Why choose white? So I'm a little bit on the fence, but I think there could have been other choices.
Okay, I'm kind of with you on that one because at first I was like, is that a color? Is, creamy wet a color? But I also agree with you. It's like, this is like a year of embracing change, embracing, how to stress less in the new year. And that's actually going to kind of go with what we're going to talk about today as far as event design. So why don't we jump right into it? So a part of, event design trends for 2026. And we were actually inspired by the Canva design trends of 2026. And according to Canva, they're saying that 2026 is going to be the year of imperfection by design, which I thought was very interesting. So I was trying to think, what are some examples of how this could apply to event planning? And I think this really has to tie in with AI as well. We're starting to see AI more and more in event planning, and AI often spits out these a little bit more robotic outputs, and we're taking these, we're using them, we're applying them to event planning. But we continuously hear from attendees, they want real, they want personal, they want genuine, they want to meet people, they want to be in person. So I think we have to kind of find this balance between maybe using AI to inspire us, but also embracing that human part of events. So I was thinking about some ways that Imperfect by Design might apply to events. And one of those is like, if you're thinking about those things that AI puts out, it's, a little bit corporate-y, maybe a little bit soulless. So we're trying to, get away from that. Or if you think about your event messaging that you send out, your event emails, people don't really want those, batch and blast, not personalized to you. They want to feel like that event email came from you, came from a real person. Even if it isn't, you can kind of play around with the wording to make it feel that way. Or maybe it's having fun with catering and, having mismatched glassware on the table, or build your own, snack bar. Like I went to an event and they had a build your own trail mix station, which I thought was like super cute. Because then you can kind of like cater it to you, but it's still, accomplishing a fun snack for the afternoon. But another big thing that kind of ties in with PC name tag is embracing Imperfect by Design on event badges. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. So what that can kind of look like for sure. Badges, event designs, vibes, whatever you're going for this year. So we're going to talk a little bit more about examples of what Imperfect by Design might look like. But I wanted to get your input. Do you feel like this Imperfect by Design might be a good thing, a bad thing?
I do think it's a good thing. Like I said earlier, I think like our world is crazy. We all know that. We have to like steer more towards being ourselves and putting that into our design, and like going back to our roots, showing where we came from, like what we stand for type of thing. And I think throwing that into that imperfect world, really would benefit design and moving forward through this year too. So
I completely agree. We're human, events are put on by humans, and people want to feel that human connection when they're there. I'm going to also agree with you. I think Imperfect by Design can be good for us, because if you think about event planning, a lot of us are very type A people. We want things to be perfect. And, it's inherently hard for us to be imperfect on purpose. So I think this might be a good challenge for us. It's like, hey, it's okay to, kind of play with things, play with colors, play with vibes, have a little fun with it. So I think this will be a good challenge for us in 2026 to kind of take a step back and put our own flavor and effort into things. So why don't we, just jump right into what those event design trends might look like.
Let's do it.
A lot of these are inspired by Rylee's design presentation that she put together. So again, if you would like that presentation, stay till the end and we'll email it to you. So let's jump right in. What's the first event design trend or prediction that you think will be popular in 2026?
And I know you already talked about this a little bit, Meaghan, but starting off strong, we're going with AI-driven design. I think mostly of what this realm discusses this year is going back to the basics of getting those agreements signed, checking license terms, really using AI as a starting point for design and not having it guide your whole project. So going to AI maybe for ideas for a TikTok trend, or saying, hey, we have this color badge ribbon. What can we do with it? Or like, how can we show this in 5 different ways? Or we have this eco event badge. What is a sentence describing this event badge that I could use for a caption for a TikTok video? Different things like that. I think sometimes it gets overused. So I think coming back to like the reality of just starting with the basics, keeping it simple, using it however we, see fit. So
I like that you kind of touched on how AI can kind of be this bonus brainstorming partner. I work on the marketing team as well with Rylee, and I use AI a lot for concepting. If I'm trying to think of, a a new blog that we could write or a new TikTok, like you mentioned. Sometimes I'll, ask AI for some recommendations, and then I kind of take that and spin it into my own thing. So I think we can also apply that to event planning. You can use AI for concepting, whether it's your event badge or your lanyard design, or even just taking a picture of the blank venue space and saying, how can I achieve this vibe? Or how could I set up the tables to, make this thing more, effective kind of thing. So I like the idea of maybe like taking a picture of your space and asking AI to bring your event design trend to life.
Yeah, for sure. Next we have, it's called Candid Camera Roll, which I love this one. I think it's so fun. It goes back to the like real personal, comforting, behind the scenes content, which I think people are going to thrive off of this year. Like people don't want to see the fake brushed on stuff. They want to see the real, like, what are you doing at your business? What are you doing when you wake up in the morning? What does a content marketer do in the morning before they go to work? What does our photographer do? Stuff like that. But also another interesting aspect was showing like your everyday objects. So like messy tables, discarded clothes, like going back to that whole vintage life too. I think that would be super cool to see.
I love that too.
Yeah.
I feel like what you're saying is like people want genuine, they want storytelling, they want real, they want personal connection. So I kind of like that you can use your event design to bring that to life. And that actually reminds me, one thing that I did at NACE Experience in 2025 is they had at their after hours party, there was someone going around with a Polaroid camera. And it's fun to have, on-site photography, but that kind of like played into, I have this Polaroid. I actually have it here. Why don't I show it? So this is a picture of me and our director, Nicole, and we were just walking around the party, and this person with a Polaroid camera came up and said, hey, let me take your picture. So they took our picture and we got that nice take home. And, every time I look at it, it's like, that was such a great experience at NACE Experience. And it's a fun little giveaway. So I like that idea of, giving someone something that they can hold in their hand. Like, this is the story of what I experienced at that event.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we'll see it a lot in the photography realm too, of like the grainy textures and like black and white, that whole, there's so many different aspects.
What could be cool? I've kind of seen this at weddings. You can get these apps where everyone can kind of play a part in taking pictures of the event, and it all gets compiled into one album. So it could be kind of cool to lean into your own attendees. It's like, this is what they're experiencing. This is what they want to take photos of. So it's kind of like auto-generating content for your event. So that could be an interesting idea to implement.
For sure. Next on the list is immersive design. So people are thriving off of the physical touch of something, whether it's scanning a QR code, 3D elements, gamification at a booth maybe. So quizzes, games, little tests, eye tests, anything like that. And actually I wanted to share a couple things that would be cool to include at your event. So we have the custom shape premiere event badge and bag tag. I think these would be super cool to like gamify, incorporate some sort of
interactive
element into your event by doing a fun shape with your event badge or bag tag. So
I was actually going to talk about the same exact thing, so I'm glad that you brought that up. One, bag tags have been a huge giveaway, at least at PC Name Tag. We're getting a lot of event planners wanting to give someone a little take-home gift, but they want it to be something that isn't just going to end up in the landfill, and bag tags have been fun. So I like that you can make it, a custom shape, and you can do that with your event badge as well. And just to kind of build on what you said, I like having this interactive element with the badge. So maybe you put a QR code on it, or you put a barcode on it, or you could add like a holographic overlay. So it has kind of like a shimmery look to it. So I think what I'm hearing from you is to take those things and kind of like take it to the next level and like kind of immerse attendees in their senses. And you can even do that with bag tags or badges.
Yeah. I feel like there's endless options with those custom name tags.
Definitely.
So
we like to have fun with it. And if you need some inspiration, our our sales team is like all about that. They love, you know, working with you and, you know, thinking of those fun shapes that would really identify with your event and your attendees.
For sure. Another fun one on our list is collage aesthetics. So this really leans back into those visual imperfections. A lot of unexpected original artwork is being shown. Those overlapping layers and mismatched mediums. So photos, stamps, brushes, different brush strokes. I don't know, anything you can think of. So overlays, whether it's colors, text, fonts, anything.
It almost brings you back to when you were a kid. I'm aging myself a little bit, but when I was a kid, we had this fun art program called Kid Picks. I don't know if you ever got to play with that, but it was just, you know, a bunch of different, you know, like paints or crayons or paint, you know, stickers or stamps. And so you just took this blank canvas and you just made a mess of it as a kid. And I think we can, you know, kind of take that playfulness into events and, you know, have a little bit of fun with it. And that kind of made me think, if you were looking for like a fun way to engage attendees and kind of incorporate that specific trend, I think it'd be fun to have like a station where you could put together like a mood board or maybe like a vision board for the year. And you could even incorporate, you know, those childlike elements, and you could cut things out of magazines or, you know, just have fun with it. So I like that as a way to kind of like get attendees, you know, engaged and having fun, and maybe even give them a little something that they could take home and inspire them for the rest of the year.
I think vision boards have been really big. I don't know if you've seen them on like TikTok or Reels at all, but
yeah, definitely.
A lot of people are doing their own vision boards, and they're doing it actual physical, like with physical stuff. So cutting stuff out, which I think is fun.
Speaking of vision boards, if you need some design inspiration, Rylee actually does this amazing job on our Pinterest. So if you're looking for what other people are doing with their bag tags, their badges, their lanyards, PC Name Tags Pinterest is a great place to start.
Cool. So moving on, we have sustainability design.
Big one.
This one, the next two are really big. Earthy tones, so sand, stone, sage green, olive green, all of those muted, like pretty earthy tones are coming back. And also I think there's different layers to this. So as far as web design goes, maybe dark modes. So playing around with how your viewers view your website, whether it's like a normal mode, a dark mode, using recycled packaging. So whether it's the packages you send your products out in, or whether it's at an event and you are giving away something, making sure that that's recyclable. Recycling programs. I know we have our awesome tag back badge holder program that we have. So that could be fun to include. And then I do have a couple amazing products that we have. The craft badge holder.
Love
so
that
that's
one.
A fun one. And then our Eco Pillar Vivid lanyard. Those are both awesome, fun ways to include the sustainability aspect into your event as well. So.
And that specific badge holder, the craft badge holder, that is from IMEX. So if you've seen pictures of IMEX or you've been to IMEX, that's a place where that's shown up. And I love that we have this option that you can recycle your paper-based badge holders or badges. It's just nice that we can, you know, give back to the earth in that way. And kind of going off of what you were saying, I have really started to see a lot of event planners incorporating what we call biophilic design. So it's like taking elements of earth and, you know, incorporating them to interior design. So some ways that I've seen this used is there was this event. They had a wellness room, and it was nice that they had like a little like water like a water display in there. So you can just sit, all the lights are off. They had fidgets, you know, there was like I forgot exactly what it's called, but it's kind of like a deep breathing oxygen machine. So you can kind of like do some deep breaths and such. I thought that was kind of cool. Or, you know, you could play around with, make it an activity. I've done this DIY terrarium at the Inbound conference a few years back, but we all took these little glass globes and we put little air plants in there. So it was kind of fun. It's like you can bring elements of nature into your event, or maybe you play around with living centerpieces. I've heard of event planners using herbs as centerpieces instead of flowers that just end up in the trash. Maybe you use real herbs that people could take home after the event. So I think there's ways that we can kind of upgrade some of the things we already do to incorporate nature.
For sure. And then going off of that, inclusive design. So thinking of high contrast colors, functional navigation for your customers, whether it's on the web or communicating with your sales team, or including voice integrations on your website too. I think that could be very helpful for customers, especially if they have needs of some sort, And then I know, Meaghan, you had some good ideas on this.
Yeah, definitely. I have spoken with so many event planners and accessibility is a must now. It's not just a nice to have, it's something that you have to have. And I think we think about accommodations, and I think they're a lot more common than you might think. Like, for example, I wear glasses. I'm wearing contacts right now. But if I'm sitting in the back of the room and the presenter has used really small text on their slide deck, it's very hard for me to see. So that's an accommodation, needing larger text. Or maybe if your keynote speaker isn't using a microphone. I can't hear you if I'm in the back of the room. So that's another accommodation if you think about it. So it's just thinking about how to make sure everybody at your experience has an equal and equitable experience. So tying in with accessibility, one tip that I would give, I do a little bit of email marketing in my role as a content marketer, and kind of going off of what you said, some of the emails that you send out, make sure you look at what your event emails look like in dark mode, because I was kind of new to this a few years ago, and some things kind of looked funky once you shifted it into dark mode. Or maybe think about the colors that you're using. Are you using a colored button? Like, is that easy to read? If you're having a red button with black text, that can be kind of hard to read. So if this is something you're new to, there are plenty of resources online to learn how to make your event emails more accessible. But
for sure,
you can also do that with event badges, making sure that the first names are a large enough font to read. And at PC Name Tag, we actually have guidelines for that. So if you're new to that, we'd love to help you out.
For sure. Moving on. Next, we have exaggerated text and fonts. So this could be anything from oversized sans serifs, like bubble fonts. We always used to draw those as kids. Those were fun. Or handwritten scripts, which I think is fun. I feel like that brings a personal touch into your design. Like, it brings trust with your customers if you have a handwritten script. And, they might not always be handwritten if they're digital, but if you find something that's unique enough, I feel like it does really portray that to customers. I think just, again, going back to the bubble fonts, I just remember doing those as kids, and it's like, it's so fun. And I feel like bringing that fun playfulness to your design is super beneficial.
I have never thought about the font that you use can kind of evoke trust or evoke more corporate-y feel or evoke more playfulness. So, and I guess if you're kind of new to that and you're not sure what to use, I feel like you could always use AI to kind of ask, what are some pairings that I should do? Or what serif font should I use? What sans serif font should I use? By the way, if someone is new to what that means, could you kind of run us through what a serif font is and what a sans serif font is?
Yes. So serif fonts have tails on them. Is that a good way to say it? And then sans serifs have nothing. So it's like a straight line.
So you kind of think of Times New Roman versus Arial.
Yep,
for example.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you had to pick, which one do you like better?
See, I think they each deserve a place. They each have a place. They each deserve a purpose. Serifs, I think, are great for elegant, headers. Headings for a story or something. And then sans serifs are great for paragraphs. If you are writing a paragraph, it's so much easier to read. Serif fonts do not belong in a paragraph.
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard. It's just harder to read. But yeah, I think I love the elegance of a serif font.
Definitely.
I love that. And I think a lot of the higher name brand brands are in serif fonts, and there's a reason for that.
Definitely. And I'm sure you could always look at other similar events. What are they using? How are they using it on their badges, their signage, in their emails? So you can just have some fun with it, but make sure that it's legible. As we were saying, accessibility is important, and you can kind of use it to add some flair, maybe to a specific word you want to stand out, but making sure that it's overall legible.
Yes. Awesome. So last but not least, we have our nostalgic mashups.
Yes, my favorite.
I know. This one is super fun. So I think of cultural familiarity in customers. So like a lot of our group are, millennials, right?
Right.
So they can relate to that 90s vibe. And I think a lot of it goes back to maybe toy packaging, cartoon characters, some of the comic style vibes. So like those big explosions, neon gradients, any neon color. So 90s all the way. And some examples I have is the Windows 95 system or software. Do you remember
Throwback,
that?
yeah.
Like I always think of the solitaire game, when
yeah.
it was like the blue bar up top and it was like just a mess.
But that like evokes a feeling for
yes, for sure. And also Super Mario Bros. I feel like that whole like pixel art vibe is coming back. And I did write down Scooby-Doo and SpongeBob because those two are both very iconic. And I think that's kind of the direction that we're headed.
I love that. It's like if you're not sure what theme you're looking for your event, maybe if you like lean into things like looking at your attendees, like generally what is the demographic for them and what are some things that might speak to them. I have a few examples of some events that I've really liked that have incorporated nostalgia. The first is Guru 2025. It's a email marketing conference and it's virtual, which is very unique, but you can still lean into that nostalgia even if people are attending virtually. They had a 90s versus 2000s theme last year. So it was kind of fun to like embrace like, oh, which team are you? They had an AI photo booth. So you could take a picture of yourself and it would kind of like turn you into like a fun neon 90s vibe, which is fun. They had a costume contest and then a virtual dance party. So you think of 90s, you think of dancing.
Yep.
So you can get people up and moving with it.
Yeah.
Another nostalgic event that I really loved was actually our company party, the PC Name Tag company party back in 2023. That was 1980s themed. So I wore, like a real actual retro sweater that my mom lent me. And I had, my hair in a side ponytail. And it was just so much fun. There was 80s candy.
That was fun.
We also had, at a different company party, we did it Wild West themed. And I'm holding up a name tag that we did that says wanted. And it's kind of like a Wild West themed sign. So that's just like, I don't know if we're specific nostalgic for Wild West, I guess. But maybe it's like thinking about the movies that you used to watch as a kid and just like bringing that to life and having fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. That party was fun.
I love it.
I think of the 80s party a lot.
We're doing a 1920s theme this year. So it'll kind of be like speakeasy themed. So you can always just have a little fun with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I guess that's what we have for our event design trends. But I wanted to ask you one more fun question since I love picking your brain as a designer. If you had to pick, what is your biggest graphic design ick? And by that, I mean something that kind of makes you go like a little bit heebie-jeebie with it or drives you bananas.
Yeah, I would have to say incorrect kerning. And for those who don't know what kerning is, it's the space between two letters.
Okay,
so say you
we're learning something new. Yeah,
kerning is the space between two letters. And in most softwares, you have the ability to adjust it yourself or it can be automatically updated. But there's so many times, if you guys Google or bad kerning,
you're like, I can't handle it. Yeah.
I'm like, please do not show me that. But especially you see it, some people do it with script fonts. And, a lot of script fonts have like tails or they like lead on into the next letter naturally. You're naturally doing that when you write in cursive. But when you do it digitally, you can change the kerning in a script font and it's just all funky and messed up. So do not do that. Whatever
you heard it here first from Miss Rylee.
Yes.
I'm more of like a Canva level graphic designer, whereas, Riley's more into like Adobe Suite. So she's definitely more advanced than me. But if I had to pick my graphic design ick is having bulleted list. So generally you should always have it, left aligned because it's just easier readability. So when you're looking at a list and all the bullet points are at like different spots in the list, I was like, no, let's just get it to the left.
Yeah.
So
That might be the content marketer in you.
It very, very well could be, Rylee. You know me so well. I think that's what we have for today. And I wanted to end on a fun wrap up for our episode. What is your like event design hot take for 2026? And I think I can start. My event design hot take is to really embrace this thing called wabi-sabi, which sounds funny, but it's a real actual thing. It's basically this Japanese aesthetic of finding beauty in perfection and like incompleteness. And you can look it up. There's lots of, different articles on it. But this is actually kind of trending right now because on TikTok, there's this clip from Over the Hill and Bobby is like looking at this rose and, Hank is saying, that one's not perfect. Like by the textbook, this rose is perfect. And he's like, no, I like this one. It's like a little wonky. It's a little wabi-sabi. So if you've heard that you might have heard it on TikTok. But how we can apply that to events is, like you mentioned, embracing natural elements, whether it's wood, stone, linen, ceramics. Another thing I kind of like is playing around with seating arrangements and options. So it's kind of giving it this like lived in feel. And if you're familiar with wedding planning, there's this trend right now called serpentine aisle. So basically it's like this aisle, instead of just having it straight up and down, you kind of snake it like a snake.
That's
it
fun.
Looks really cool. So I feel like you could do that at conferences. It could look kind of cool. Renting event decor that has a little bit of character, or also maybe just like leaving more like white space in your agenda. You don't have to go from thing to thing to thing to thing. People want to take a break and take a deep breath. So those are some examples of how you can kind of embrace imperfection, which is the whole topic of our episode.
Sweet. Yeah. For me, I kind of had two. I couldn't decide between the two, and they kind of go off each other. But the first is embracing monochromatic elements. So like black and white and sepia, those filters, I feel like they add so much character. And again, they're not your normal colored photo or your normal colored element. It's imperfect, like we've been talking about. It's not the same as every other photo. And not only in photography, but like video content. How can you get that like grainy texture in your video? And then my second one, I don't know if you've seen this on TikTok or Reels or anything, but cottage core aesthetics.
Yes,
it's been
my
a
favorite.
big thing. And it kind of goes off of what you were talking about, like living that simple life, easy. A lot of people refer to it when they like thrift. A lot of thrifting people talk about it in home decor and fashion. It really just brings out that vintage charm and, like I said, simple life. And I think it would be cool to incorporate this kind of in events. When you were talking about earlier with like mismatching glassware, I think like thrifting glassware for your event, I think that could be super fun. Whether it's, it doesn't have to be a big event, but maybe a small event and you have a drink bar or a, mocktail bar.
And they're reusable, so it's better for the environment as well. I know
Yeah.
when I rented decor for my wedding, I, rented mismatched candlesticks. So it kind of gives it that cottagecore element. Or maybe you could have some fun with catering, like having rustic bread or having a matcha bar, something just like a little bit different, but cozy.
For sure. Yeah. Cozy is definitely a good way to describe
People
it.
are, away from their families, and it's kind of nice to have, this event where they can feel at home and feel cozy and comfy while they learn.
For sure.
Awesome.
Sweet.
I think that's what we have for today. I loved learning more about your event design trends. And Rylee does this every single year. She does a ton of research on like what's going to be trending in the new year, or even just predictions of what she thinks will be popular. So going back, if you would like a copy of Rylee's presentation that she did in 2025, we are actually giving away free copies of that. So you can email eventconnection@pcnametag.com and we'll send you a copy of Rylee's design presentation. So just ask us for that in the email and we'll send it off to you. So which of these designs did you find most interesting? If there's any that you feel like we forgot, let us know. You can send us an email. You can email or you can message us on Instagram, whatever works for you. And also, we would love if you subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, leave us a like, a comment, whatever works for you on whatever platform you're on. We really appreciate it. So let us know what you're doing for your events this year. We're really eager to know, the fun, themes or vibes that you're going for, and excited to see what we'll do in the new year.